Welcome, everybody. It is great to see you back here. You are the true warriors for equity and social justice and improvement in our colleges. There are 68 of you still with us at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon on the longest of months, somehow, and the longest of years. So we really do appreciate your energy and your effort. And you're going to be rewarded today with a very important session with a great group of panelists. And I am mostly going to get out of the way and will again encourage you to put questions in the chat as the presentation and panel unfolds. You have four leaders. Quinton's going to introduce most of them, and I'm going to introduce Quinton in a second. A plea again to click on the survey link before things get too far along in the lower left-hand corner of your Attendify. And without any further ado, I would love to introduce a colleague and a friend of mine, Quinton Bemiller, who is the Academic Senate President at Norco College and an Associate Professor of Art. He served on Norco's Guided Pathways implementation team during the first California Guided Pathways project, where I met him and actually did a panel with him as well there, and became involved with the college's completion initiative in 2015. He has served as the department chair for Arts and Humanities, chair of the Teaching and Learning Committee as well. He's also a coach for LFM, leading from the middle, coaching teams from El Camino and Bakersfield College, and is currently serving on LFM's strategic planning group. He completed his EDD at Cal State San Bernardino, and his dissertation focused on faculty leadership roles in the community college, which couldn't be a better setup for this session today. So without any further ado, I will let Quinton take it over, and I'll be monitoring the chat throughout this session and come back on so that Quinton can move to being a respondent to some of your questions in the last 15 or 20 minutes. So take it away, Quinton. Thanks so much to everyone for joining us.
All right, thank you, Rob. So I would like to introduce our panelists briefly. We have with us today Dr. Jackie Boboye. Jackie Boboye has been a full-time counseling professor at Chaffey College since 2005. She is a senator on the Academic Senate and faculty advisor for the Multicultural Club. In 2017, she was part of the research team, a year-long research in guided pathways, transforming the college journey, and faculty inquiry team for student pathways. Jackie shares knowledge with peers and in the community through the guided pathways, informational workshops, flex activities, faculty senate meetings, NAFSFA, International Educators Conferences, and community engagements. She's also a member of the ASCCC Black Caucus. We also have with us today Tahira Ty Simpson. Ty serves as a local senator at San Bernardino Valley College. She has served as the Campus Guided Pathways faculty lead and as an ASCCC Guided Pathways liaison since 2018. Ty served on the Guided Pathways Task Force with ASCCC for 2 years. I should just say ASCCC. Now I'm remembering why they do that. From 2018 to 2020, supporting colleges and presenting at the ASCCC Guided Pathways Regionals. Ty's current role with the ASCCC is as a faculty lead on the transfer articulation and student services. And then last but not least, we have with us Dr. Luke Lara. Luke Lara has been a counseling faculty member at Miracosta College since 2015. Currently, he is the Academic Senate President and Guided Pathways Counseling Faculty Lead at Miracosta College. He has been involved in Guided Pathways leadership since 2017 when Miracosta joined the California Guided Pathways Project. That I think is one of the first places I met Luke, actually. He has also worked with ASCCC last year in an effort to connect student equity, guided pathways, and faculty diversification through an equity-driven systems model. So without further ado, I want to get into this. I do want to tell our audience members, our participants at the summit, that the impetus for this came about when we were talking about Pillar 4 and how difficult it is to achieve our goals that we have for Pillar 4 in guided pathways. And when you look at what needs to be done to support Pillar 4, all of those things are squarely in the 10+1 of Academic Senate. I've also had conversations with people about how in the California Community College system, we have to work within our systems that include the Faculty Association, the unions, the classified unions, and the Academic Senate. And I can't speak for those other groups, but I can speak for Academic Senate to a certain extent. And I think what we all agree is we want Academic Senate to be much more than a place where other people who are doing guided pathways and equity work come to get a stamp of approval on their guided pathway scale of adoption or on their equity plans. So we want to be doing this work. In particular, there's specific challenges that include aligning academic programs to transfer in employment, conducting student learning assessments that lead to improvements in program review and professional development, weaving applied and experiential learning into the student's curricular experience, and developing equitable teaching practices. So what I would like to ask the panelists first to get the discussion going is, where is your Senate at now? What are you trying to do? What are you hoping to do? What has worked? Where are you still trying to go? So I will open it up to whoever wants to share a little bit about what's happening or has been happening with your Senate at your college.
Hello. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be with all of you colleagues that I've worked with throughout the state in the last several years around this issue. I'll just briefly start that at Maricosta College, I'm the current Academic Senate president, but as you mentioned in my bio, I've been involved with the guided pathways work on our campus at least for the last 4 years as a lead, but we joined the Achieving the Dream Network in 2015. And that was our first kind of impetus into really looking at large scale efforts to do equity work. And through that process of looking at data and our Academic Senate being very involved in that process, we decided to go with the guided pathways approach, and it was fortuitous to be to join the California Guided Pathways project and really learn from that. But I think, like many colleges, we've really focused a lot on the first 3 pillars and have gotten to a place where we're either systematic or at scale or planning to scale in many of the sub areas for those pillars. But it's the opposite for the 4th pillar. COVID kind of hit us really hard and slowed down that movement, because I believe in our planning, as we've been coordinating this work, we were looking for this year to really get into that a little bit more specifically, but we've shifted to really supporting students as much as possible, given that we're all remote, and so the larger focus on scaling anything and doing anything coordinated around this is delayed a bit, unfortunately. But we do have, I just want to say that at our school, we have faculty. There's a lot of, we have a culture that's grassroots, and we have several faculty and various departments doing the work that we need to scale up. And so, although it's not a coordinated effort, there are a lot of examples and models that we can benefit from. And we have like I said, a grassroots culture where professional learning is a shared experience, and we need to draw on that to really expand and get more faculty to weave in that contextualized learning and to focus on student learning outcomes that are tied to career development, and working with our counseling faculty to develop modules. I mean, that was a conversation we were having on our this morning between faculty and counselors. So the seeds are being planted, but we are not moving as fast as the coordinators and the leadership want.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's
go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was going to say that's part of the challenge and part of the tension is that we know where we want to be, but then we also have to work through our processes at the college and in the state, which sometimes just feels so slow and so difficult. Jackie, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No problem. First of all, thank you so much for having me here today. This is a great opportunity I also want to give my college, Sheffield College, faculty and staff for all their collaboration over the years, and of course our students. We have very good leaders that have done tremendous work regards this faculty, guidance pathway work. We in academic senate, we had our previous president, which is now a dean of our college, that did a lot of work in the research that we did, which had to do with guidance pathway ensuring learning. So also our curriculum chair, she's been great coming to educate our Senate. Just like you mentioned earlier, Quinton, that this work should be done by faculty Senate. At this point, it's different departments that are actually leading this work, of course, in consulting with faculty Senate with it. So for example, we had faculty inquiry team in 2018. One of the purpose of that research was for us to find out what can we do to help our students in terms of ensuring learning and make sure that they are graduating in time and in a timely manners. In addition to that, to make sure that the students are taking the correct courses that are needed. We did this because using program design for this ensuring learning is to track courses and program learning outcome. We also find out that using the data to inform and design instruction is very, very critical. Another thing that the faculty senate that also help all the faculty in the college to make sure that all the departments are using, the efforts of the MAP program, like a program map. So every department has to come together and review their program and to see what is going on, how many units in this program for a student that they have to take in order for them to accomplish their goal. So each faculty member really go in and look at each of their program to make sure that is this a high unit program, is this a low unit program. Okay. So another thing that we do in terms of to support services, to support student pathway, are also we have to look into training faculty. What is it that faculty are missing? What is it that do they need to support, the staff as well? And also the training that we did in terms of the reading apprenticeship that was given to all faculty that are interested in that was very, very helpful. In addition to that, we also, in ensuring learning, we realized there are several key components in ensuring learning. I'm going to read some of those bullets that we have. Number one is clearly define program learning outcome, like I said, to align with the requirement for the success in further education and employment in the field of study. I believe Lara mentioned something about employment, because what happened when our student finish? What happened when our student graduated? They will not make sure they be able to find employment in that field. So faculty senate also work with that faculty inquiry team to also make sure that we have ongoing faculty assessment and of mastery the outcome, the learning outcome for each program. We're also doing an ongoing assessment, which is, again, that's more work to be done, So we have an ongoing review of the assessment data by faculty to improve instruction, because it's important. If we're talking about how we want our students to graduate in a timely manner, we also have to say, how can we support our faculty as well? So to do so, using assessment data has been one way that we are ensuring the learner components. So the voices, and I can talk about the voices later of our students, what they were asking from the school, from the college as well. We have the amazing students that are very expressive, where they come into the faculty senate. They actually came in to express themselves, what they will need, the leaders to share what they will need from the faculty. So, and then also we have the curriculum chair that came in, that she did awesome work with Sheffield College to see how the curriculum can be, to be a way that's going to help our students, not to change the content of our curriculum, because that's unethical. That's not what we're talking. And the recent things we're doing right now in counseling department that we recently did was was to make sure that the ACC, we are looking ways that the student be aware of which ACC they belong to. When they come see a counselor, we can also partner them up with an advisor. Okay, and student knows from beginning to the end, because the counselors have made sure that these are the courses that you need in order for you to graduate. Again, that's more work that needs to be done. So I just want to share that.
Okay, thank you. I'm taking notes as you and speak, because there's some things I want to come back to you, but I first want to give Ty a chance to say a little bit too.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I represent San Bernardino Valley College, and I want to definitely give thanks to everybody for having me on the panel, but I want to also thank my my colleagues there, because we have, of course, we're not quite as far along as my colleagues here on, we are still, and we're in year 3. So we have done a lot of work, but again, like Jackie has overly said, we have so much more work to do. But I want to just kind of share with you some of the work that we have done. At San Bernardino Valley College, we this year, we finally had our first year of our standing committee, which allowed us under the Academic Senate to broaden the work, so that we actually have committees and we're able to kind of break things down in 3 different subgroups and have leads take on those assignments. So basically this year we came up with 12 goals of what we wanted to do, because we realized that without having goals and without having set times, we're just going to keep running around, not quite doing everything. So we tried different leadership roles on our campus. We started off with 3 faculty leads and the dean over us. That was, an experience, again, because, this work is all, there's no blueprint. So we're doing this blueprint as we're working. So with that, we had taken, looked at three things that we wanted to do, again, because it was 3 of us. We came up with getting our career wheels, our meta majors placed in our career fields. We call our meta majors career fields. So we got an interactive wheel to display that. So we took all of our degrees and certificates, which we had 380 degrees, certificates, and transfers, and we sectioned them all up and made that 6 of our career wheels. We did a lot of buy-in. Initially, we did not quite understand, because none of us, when we took on the roles, were senates. None of us were on an academic senate, so we didn't really understand the roles. We did a lot of trial and error. And we quickly found out that by not knowing our constituent groups and our governance structure, we were just kind of spinning our wheels. So we immediately went to every training we could do to get on top of that. Once we got in with knowing our academic senate's role, knowing our college council's role, knowing our curriculum, knowing each role of all of our constituents, it just made the work so much easier. Because then it was like, okay, if I need some support from the campus, where do I go? Go through your academic senate, go to your college council, go through your different constituent groups to make it that much easier, which it really helped. A lot of our areas that we are barely, entering the scale. When we looked at our scale of adoption, we're still in the first 2 areas, pretty much across the board. And shared learning, which I know we're focusing on today, we really haven't hit that yet. That is something we plan on really hitting next year, because we are still in our program maps. We're looking at what maps will work. So we're still kind of like in negotiations. We have a lot of drafts, but we are still working to see how is this going to work. So we've tried a way. Last year, we had our instructional faculty come up with how would they want to see things done. Then we took our counseling, brought up, a committee of counselors. We just went through and said, okay, this could work, this can't work, So after a couple of weeks of doing that, we took it back. So we're still kind of going back and forth in that to figure out what is the best interest of the student. And we are educating each other along the way, because a lot of people don't understand what other people do. So us as counselors, we didn't really understand what the instructional side. So this work has allowed and made us work together in ways that, is it's a breathtaking, honestly. It's really nice to be able to work with people and see and understand what they do. And then that way we can kind of understand the decision making. Because originally we didn't do that. That was a big mistake that we didn't do, was, kind of have that conversation. So having those conversations is moving things along a little bit slower than some of us think it should have been. Because me, I'm like a go-getter. I want it done. So I had to slow back and say, okay, what's going on? So we kind of had to regroup a couple of times. So one of the main things we did this year was identify 3 groups. And in one of the groups I led personally, which is our student profile, which is our maps. So in leading that, we looked at 3 areas that our community needs the most employment. What are the top 3 employment areas? And we identified business administration, education, and nursing. So nursing pathways, of course, they have their own, they're so governed, it's step by step. So we didn't make any changes thus far in nursing. But what we are doing is our education group, because we don't have an ADT in education. So we're always using what we come up with to link that. So I was approached by San Bernardino, which is our local K-12, and we need to work together for our students, right? Because your students are my students are your students. We got to get this, work together. So what we've done is we pulled in Cal State San Bernardino, because that's our local CSU, San Bernardino City Unified School District, and Valley College. So we are all working together to build a pathway for education. So we are finding out so many things are right there in our laps that we did not understand. Like, I had no idea, and I was an educator for San Bernardino City Unified for 9.5 years. I found out there's a teaching academy, and they don't know what to do with their students. And I only found that out because I'm attending as much as I possibly can under guided pathways to make sure that we're making this a true pathway from community to college to career. So what we've decided is that look at the needs of our students. Our teachers in K-12 needed somewhere to refer their students to, okay, because not all students are A through G. So we realized we have a big portion of students that come to the community college that need to be here. So we've looked at that need. We're looking to say, okay, how do we nurture this relationship to push students along and give them what they need, of course, because guided pathway says student-centered. So we got to make sure that we are meeting the needs. We realize that a lot of our students want to go into education, but they don't have mentorship. So we looked at services. That's what we're identifying now, are the services that we can offer at each level. So when they come from K-12, they know what they can get at the community college. And when they transfer on to the university, they know what they're going to get there. So, it's been a process, and we meet every single week, and we've connected with our Grow Your Own program. So San Bernardino City Unified have a Grow Your Own program, and it's surrounded by the teachers of color. So we're looking at men of color that are not in the education profession, but want to be there. How are we going to support them? Because we did identify the fact that a lot of students come in saying they want to be teachers, but somewhere along the way they get lost. So we are building supports through all 3 institutions that will help them stay, not only into that path, but clarify it, but also stay on that path. So that's where we are really focusing on, is staying on the path. What are we doing to make sure that these students are staying there? And we realize we've identified a lot of them have, of course, the insecurities that all students have in our socioeconomic environment. But what can we do? And what can we do that's sustainable? So one of the things that I went back and asked our committee to do was, we found out a lot of students aren't going into their teaching programs because they can't afford the testing. Because testing to become a teacher is very expensive. So we looked at, okay, in order for them to go into the undergraduate teaching, go in as a junior, they need to have their CBEST done. So I went to the committee, I said, hey, if we can, pay for some of these students to get this CBEST, can we help them? And it was absolutely. So that is the cheapest thing, but it made so much of a difference. So hopefully we're going to keep track of these students and see what resources are most helpful to them, and make sure that we keep our hand there, keep that relationship nurtured, and definitely expand it, because we're like right in the middle of 3 major K-12 settings without even going over to Chafee's, territory, or even Crafton Hills College, our sister school. We want to make sure that our students in our area get what they need, and that we're respecting boundaries. And if students come, we of course will serve every student. And that is the beauty with guided pathways to me, is serving every student. I don't have to say you're not funded, or I can't see you. So that is the one beauty I love about this. And there's no probation requirements for our students. So I love the work we do, and I just want to continue working for our students. Thank you.
Thanks, Ty. So when we talk about academic senate, I want people to realize that yes, there is the academic senate at your college, but there's also the standing committees of academic senate, in particular curriculum, program review, professional development. Now, Luke was talking about these grassroots movements that are happening. We have had a lot of that at Norco College too, particularly around the classroom and equitable teaching practices. And I think the big challenge with Pillar 4, as I see it, that's very different than, say, Pillar 1, is that, you know, at your college, if you realize that your onboarding process for students is really complicated and just ridiculous, and you're asking students to do just way too much to even get them onto campus and into the classroom, you can make those structural changes. When it comes to teaching and what's happening in the classroom, when it comes to how faculty are designing their programs and planning their programs for the future, when we're talking about faculty who are actually writing the curriculum that students will be studying and using, you're talking about somewhat of, I think the phrase is the sacred cow. This is the area, or as Rob would say, the faculty's cheese. You know, don't touch my cheese. So how do we as senates help to move from these grassroots movements where we have circles of faculty who are very interested into more systemic changes? Because that's really what Guided Pathways is all about, is making systemic changes. All of us are also working on equity and anti-racism. We're trying to dismantle, institutional racism. So when it comes to these areas like curriculum, program review, professional development, how does the Senate help to get those things, those changes institutionalized rather than having them be, kind of quietly taking place in the shadows? Do you have thoughts on this? Sorry, I know that was a lot. I'll give you a moment to process.
No, I think Quinton, if I can answer, like I mentioned earlier this morning, we were having that exact conversation between our counseling faculty. First, the counseling faculty met, and then we had a meeting with faculty who we've designated as instructional faculty liaisons. So just to give you some context, 4 years ago, we kind of attacked the low-hanging fruit first, meaning we worked on our kind of grouping our disciplines in what we call academic and career pathways. And so we have 6 academic and career pathways. We've grouped our disciplines that way. But a major issue is, in the discussion that we had this morning is that, okay, what's the inescapable experience for students that we're looking for? And what's inescapable is the classroom, and who has the domain of the classroom is the faculty, right? So when we say we want to really embed a career development process, instead of just referring a student to a counselor, that's not a process. That's just, well, I guess that could be a process, but it's not the process that we're looking for. We want something that's more robust, holistic, and connected to perhaps what the student is learning in the classroom and the skills that they're developing in that particular class. And so we're talking about, like, so do we have a separate counseling class that every student needs to take, or do we have a module that's embedded in every course, at least the introductory courses and these ACPs that students are taking, where they can do that exploration and they can understand the value of a comprehensive education plan, so that by the time they then do meet with a counselor as part of this process, the conversation is more informed, enriched by that, what they experience in the classroom. And one of the things that, of course, was brought up by one of the counselors was, well, how are we going to make faculty put this in their classes, in their curriculum? And so we are so entrenched in the status quo that we can't think systemically about this. And so I brought up, it's like we can we could take the approach of creating a module with faculty and then trying to get faculty to embed that. And then it's up to the individual faculty to do, right? But I think long-term, we need to start thinking about, could there be part of the core for all of these courses to have an objective that wouldn't change the course outline of records substantially? So it wouldn't change transferability, wouldn't change anything, but it would require the faculty to go in there and copy and paste this one thing. And then on top of that, create a student learning outcome connected to that. And so we have committees on campus, right? The curriculum committee, we have our students, our outcomes assessment committee. We have to involve the leaders of these committees or the members of these committees in these conversations as well. So we can start thinking and planning structurally. We don't, for instance, right now I told you that we have our ACPs, Organization of Disciplines, but we still have our disciplines in colleges, which do not match the ACPs, right? So philosophically, we understand this concept of ACPs, but organizationally, we're still stuck in the old way. And the same thing with how we've organized our services. And so if we really truly are going to get faculty to buy in, we have to really change our organization of our colleges and faculty, and we have to look at our onboarding processes for our faculty coming in and talking about this organization around ACPs and guided pathways. So that's what I would suggest. The inclusion of these faculty leaders on those committees. As an academic senate president, it would be on me to connect. As a guided pathways lead, would be important for me to bring that up in my meetings with the leadership of guided pathways on my campus, and to just make sure that we're talking about it so that we can sustain a momentum around it.
Excellent. Jackie or Ty, did you want to
Yes,
comment?
I can say something about it.
Sure.
This effort, I want to also thank my colleague. She's the faculty, counseling faculty lead person. She has done tremendous work with our faculty, counseling faculty, to work together, as well as with the instructor faculty. Referring again to look, Lara, on the academic career community, and every school call it different. At SHAPE, we call it ACC, which is Academic Career Community. We have 6 of those communities where, again, the lead person that I worked tremendously with the faculty and the counseling faculty to come up with all this. I was going to help our students so that students don't come in getting lost, because it's so much to choose from. I just can't imagine being a student coming in at a community college, like, okay, go ahead and pick a major. Okay, a lot of courses, a lot of majors that's so similar. So by us having this academic career community helps our students to kind of stay focused. In this community, these are the major that lean into this community. So as a counselor, we were able to share those information to our students. So at the end of that meeting, students are aware of which community they belong, and also which faculty member that they can connect with if they have some questions. Okay, and also we also had like an academic career faculty advisor, which I was one of those advisors in the past for my department, where if a student wants to go into counseling or guidance, now they can connect with me to ask those questions about what is it going to take for me to go in this career, what kind of classes do I need, even though I'm a counselor. But if I am instructor, talking to the student, I'm not going to necessarily counsel doing the job of the counselor, but I can advise the student relate to that career. So that has been very, very effective. Another good thing that we are doing right now, again, and putting counselor in the meetings with our schools, so we divided those, all the school, all those academic career community, like I said, 6 of them. So we have maybe 5 counselors go in to participate in the meetings so that they can ask us questions. Of course, they can come to us, but we also come to you now. How can we help you? How can we work together? So I mean, again, this has been very helpful. Like I said, there's more work to do, in this in supporting our students. But faculty senate has been very helpful with that. I'm hoping that we can do more work in faculty senate, really promote that. More work to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
At San Bernardino Valley College, our academic senate, of course, like everyone else, is the I don't want to say decision-making body, but is the one of the main governance that we must meet with. So with us, one of the things that we had done this year with our guided pathways to ensure that we are meeting that need is that we make sure that our academic senate is represented in our committee. So we have our assignments every couple of years. So we did ask last year that the academic senate to, allow faculty and staff to change their I think it was actually, we didn't ask for the change, I'm sorry. It was time to voting. So that's how when we got our standing committee, we have senators that are actually on the committee as well. And one of the things I find is beautiful is that we are embedded as counselors in every single committee. I'm sorry, I'm lost for words, I'm tired. So every committee here on our campus is somebody that's represented from non-instructional and instructional, our library, our tutoring center. So to make sure that we are all speaking the same. And that's one of the things that we did find a challenge, and it is still our challenge, I'm being transparent, is the communication aspect, making sure everybody's at the right tables when decisions are being made, making sure that everybody's there when information is being brought in, because again, we all serve on a lot of different committees, across the state, across the campus, and we don't necessarily always know what each other is doing, but we recognize that that's an issue, and we are focusing on it. And that's one of the things that, if you don't recognize the problem, you can't fix it. So we do recognize that, and we are actively, and we, working on making sure everybody understands. So when our academic senate president asks us to do different things, like make sure that your report is a physical report so that it can be posted on the Senate's website for at least the 72 hours. We all are actually making that a conscious effort. And then, our Senate follows up and say, hey, if I know you mentioned you have a report, can we get it in writing? I find that extremely helpful as being a faculty lead, especially for guided pathways, to make sure that I had that report available so everybody could see it. Because that way, if they can't make the meeting, that you have the ability to give your feedback, because we don't want to do the work without having everybody's buy-in either, or at least knowledge, because we don't always agree with everything that goes on our campuses, let's be honest. But if we know about it, it's a lot easier than if we don't, getting this work done. Because there were times where honestly in the beginning, I forgot, I didn't realize that I needed to do it. I didn't do it, and it causes, confusion. But now that we know, okay, this has to be submitted by this time, our Senate, posted by this time, and then everybody tends to know what's going on. It just makes it so much easier to get this work done, because we're not bickering over little things. Now we're able to collectively focus on our students, right? Because if you know what's going on, you're going to be at the table, because we know we're all here for students. None of us come to this profession and say, I'm not here for students, because we're in the wrong profession.
Ty, your point you just made about communication is a great segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is relationships and the Senate's relationship with other groups in the college, in the district. So in particular, I'm thinking about classified professionals. I'm thinking about students, particularly the student leadership, but also administrators. And even faculty. We always think of the academic senate as the faculty, but we also know there can be a disconnect between the faculty serving on academic senate and what the academic senate is trying to do, and the faculty at large. We also have the faculty associations, the faculty unions, and sometimes the faculty unions on the same page with the senate, and sometimes it's not. I'm also thinking, Jackie, of Chaffey College, and in LFM, in an LFM meeting the other day, we were having a conversation about how we realized that when we looked at many of the community colleges around the country that had been recognized by the Aspen Institute, colleges that were highly effective in increasing their student outcomes, student success, we realized that the majority of those colleges had long-term presidential leadership at their college. I think Henry Shannon's been president at Chaffey since 2007. I think that's right.
Yes.
Right. And so, and part of that is a relationship, because obviously if an administrator, especially the president, is there long enough, there's more of a chance that they're going to develop a closer relationship with the Senate and other faculty leaders. So I guess my question is, how do you see the academic senate's relationships with these other groups that I've mentioned playing into the work that we're trying to do?
Yeah, I can go say something. So thank you for asking that question. Yes, effective communication is critical in the work that we do as faculty, staff, and administrator. As we know, it's so important to have great leaders. Dr. Channing that you mentioned has great relationship with our academic senate, where it will come as often needed, as well as the other leaders, the vice presidents and so on and so forth. We come in to present any issues, concern, opportunities that's going on in the college, to come and present it with us for us to hear what's going on. And this is great. And vice versa. If there's any issue, for example, if there's any equity gap that we think is an issue with the college, faculty senate will send email, and the president or vice president will come address that issue. So having communication to see how we can all work together has been a way for us to move to positive outcome at Sheffield. And same thing, so I would say our student leaders, like you mentioned. I remember when the Dreamers Club, or the DACA, that came in wanted to present what's happening based on the law. And they came to express their concern and asking what can the faculty and senates do for them, for the students. And definitely their issue is our issue. Their problem definitely is our problem. And those issues were addressed to the college, and also to see how we can adopt those, or the social justice or anything that we need to do to support those our students as well.
Thank you. Luke or Ty?
Sure, I can go. I think I mentioned a little bit about that in my last response, but at Maricosta, for instance, we are focused this year, or have been, on our case management approach that we developed last year. And so we have about 50 people who, are classified administrators, students, and faculty involved in this for 6 ACP success teams, and really focusing on our DI student populations across the college, but within the 6 ACPs. And which is different than our approach in the years up to now, which this is our first kind of like integrated approach. But before this year, we were organized in terms of work groups and committees around the 4 pillars. And we haven't been so much this year. And right now, our guided pathways work is still being done through this kind of, not necessarily connected to governance as a committee, but as kind of a committee that has constituent group representation and vets ideas through our college council and through our governance committees whenever something needs to go through for approval. But the work that we've been able to do has been because we've been collaborating with all of these different groups. And so what we need to do is then institutionalize that. And one of the examples where we've seen success in it, so I'm hopeful that this can happen as we move into the discussion that we've been having about Pillar 4, is that when we created our academic maps, it was, again, a low-hanging fruit. We worked on that first, and we got faculty buy-in first with our AA degrees. And then we kind of hit a wall because it wasn't like there was no incentive, there was no institutionalized process. Then the work group, Clarify the Path, created a proposal and brought it to our curriculum committee, and then we were able to easily embed it within a curriculum committee. So when a faculty member comes and makes an update to their to a course, there's a flag that you can check that will then initiate the process of communicating with the designated counselor and Office of Instruction technician to work with that faculty member on any modifications that need to happen to a map based on the change in that course or that program. And so now we have a mechanism for that that's embedded, and there's regular reporting of it. And now we have a lot more academic maps coming out, and even as they've been established, there are regular updates because of the curriculum process. So I'm hopeful that we can do that, but that took collaboration, that took conversations, and it stemmed from that grassroots model that that we have on our campus, because quite frankly, we, as faculty, I don't know if this is the case at other schools, but at faculty on my campus, there's a lot of resistance and opposition to anything that's top down. Like the administrators say, we got to do this, even if faculty were involved in that decision. But if it comes out of the administrator's mouth, there is a real resistance and questioning and suspicion around it. So it really we have to understand the culture of our campuses to be able to make those kinds of things happen at that scale that we are looking to get them.
Yes. So yeah, as we say in LFM, engage the resistance. But I think this is a really important thing, because you can lay the best plans down on paper. When you try to implement things, that's very different. You get pushback from people. You have people who are confused. You have people that are upset. You have people who are complacent. You can have any variety of response to the plans that you're trying to, and the initiatives that you're trying to bring forward. And that's why the actual relationships between the Senate leaders, the faculty leaders at your college with the other constituent groups is so important. Tide, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add to this strand.
No, well, I was just going to mention what we've done this year was our Senate president had developed an exec team, and it was pretty much, it originally was in response to the anti-hate the Black student support, and it was right after everything happened. We did a resolution over the summer, so we just kind of kept it because we realized it's useful. It helps our Senate president stay focused. It helps her, she knows that we are there to actually support. We can work out the kinks before it goes to the entire body as much as possible, just to be have that communication. And in that exec team, there's our curriculum chair, there's our program review. There's everybody that holds areas, and that chair are most I don't want to say important, but our decision-making committees, right? All of the leaders in there are there. There are an array of counseling, array of instructional. So there's everybody kind of working together to make sure that we are addressing the needs of our student population and supporting our Senate president and her job, because again, we're peers. We should all be making this work easier for each other, not harder. So I like the way that our campus is doing it. And I really look forward to seeing more of this work done by supporting each other and moving the work forward. Again, we are in one of the most needed regions for education. It's not funny. So we have to be willing to put ourselves aside for all of the greater good of our students. And I'm happy to see that happening. It's slow, but it's happening,
Yes, very true. I don't know if we have any questions that have been posted yet, but I'd love to just remind the audience that I think we have a few minutes that we could entertain questions. So if you have any questions, for the panelists, go ahead and type them in.
Yeah, Quentin, just real quick, thank you to all of you, by the way. This shows you how, by the way, I work in 37 or 38 states around the country. Only California has shared government. It's the way it has it with the academic senate. These issues are equally important in other states, but what the other states don't have is the organization that we have with the senates in California and having them be partners in this development. It doesn't work in California without the Senate being aligned with administration on these issues. And it doesn't work without the Senate reminding its members that you were in fact involved in these developments and these designs, right, where that is true. And so thank you to all for being stewards of change. We know it's not easy sometimes. The only other observation I'll share there is remember that most of your folks, the faculty especially, they've usually been there the longest, are very used to having heard some version of all of this before. We're going to change these things. You're going to be involved. We're going to see all these changes. You're going to work really hard. We're going to make the student experience different. And up until now, frankly, it largely has not been true. And so now when you're getting people to see, wait a minute, this is actually really happening, that's a whole different level of engagement and communication you need. Back when 18 months ago or 3 years ago, like, yeah, okay, here's a different funding from the state, or here's another administrator saying we're doing this. And so as you get closer to rolling out and supporting implementation of things, this is just natural that's when you're going to see more open questioning of things that lots of people just didn't bother with before because they didn't trust this was going to go anywhere. And again, to be fair, from history, they were probably right. So it is a sign of your success as leaders that you're getting to that stage of structural tension. Doesn't make any easier, of course. Couple of just, by the way, very laudatory comments more than questions. It's either Angela from Chafee the Student was sharing an observation about how in curriculum and Senate meetings, the Brown Act and Parliamentarian Act are enforced and students can only speak during the public comment section. And her observation, again, really savvy as it was earlier, is that means that students can't react to things they hear later in the meeting when they may not have the ability to have guessed what was going to be discussed or hadn't had the time to process it. So she's just making an observation and a request about having students who come to these committees have more of a voice and potentially be able to vote. Being able to vote thing may or may not be possible, but the voice thing seems to me like a totally fair observation, which is public comment section sometimes will come before people have had a chance to process the issues. And so any thoughts on that you guys have tried at your colleges or thought about as you've worked through these issues?
For us, we have student representation on. We have somebody for every committee, right? Sometimes they don't show up, but we do not ever limit a student's voice. If a student, I can be in the middle of speaking, our student say, "Hey, I don't understand something." It is our responsibility to slow down, stop, acknowledge, and educate. And so, yeah, not having that, I'm really sorry that that is a feeling of a student, because that bothers me like to my core. But no, we are here to serve our students. Therefore, their voices should always be heard.
Thanks, Ty. Luke?
Yeah, I would just agree with everything that Ty said. It is the same at MiraCosta. I think that, there's various interpretations of the Brown Act. And I think that, the Brown Act allows for public comment and they provide some structure, but you can go above and beyond that to allow more public comment and interaction. That is not, so if you follow Robert's Rules of Order, that doesn't prevent people from participating either. And so it's just a matter of the culture. If you want to have more students, you want to value students, then you're going to remove those barriers.
Yeah, Luke, Robert's Rules and the Brown Act were designed to make sure things weren't done secretly behind closed doors, right? And so you're doing all this out in public. And I think so that we have more flexibility with some of those. So it's a great point from both of you. One question did come in as we move towards the end here. I think, Luke, after your comments, especially about administrators, when it's seen as administrators driving something and not going in a great direction. So what can administrators do? This is Ginny Moran from Victor Valley. What can administrators do to cultivate an environment supportive of faculty equity work without appearing intrusive or top-down? Quinton, you've been asking a lot of questions. You want to start with that one?
Yeah.
How do administrators do this?
I mean, I think the answer is to involve people. I mean, I can remember very clearly when our Vice President of Academic Affairs, who was Diane Deckmeyer at the time, who's now at Miracosta, you know, she gathered everybody she could at the college together to first present to us our data and help us realize that, hey, guess what? There's not that many of our students who are actually finishing or graduating. We see them walk across the stage and it looks like a lot of students, but guess what? It's a tiny little bit of all the students that actually come to our campus hoping to accomplish their goals. So everybody took a collective gasp, you know, and at that point, you know, a lot of us were hooked, students, classified professionals, faculty, and we knew what the work was we had to do, you know. And then when you do that, when you turn something over to someone and you say, okay, faculty, go look at these other colleges, see what are they doing? What kind of meta majors do they have? And then have the faculty come back. You know, we're working with highly intelligent people, not just the faculty, but also the classified professionals. You know, these are highly educated people. They are professionals and they have bright minds and they can think for themselves. And so let them really be a part of the work by letting them own the work from the beginning. And the best thing a leader can do is that, because once you do that, it takes off. It takes off like wildfire, and you don't have to browbeat people or stand on a soapbox and preach to them to try to get them to understand. It starts happening more naturally.
Yeah, Quinton, I think back when I was a CIO a long time ago, and Jack Friedlander was at Santa Barbara City College and an institution in the CIO group for a long number of years. And one of the things he's always talked about is, it's not actually my job to solve the problems, but part of my job is to help identify the problem and then get the right people in the room to solve them. And then I stand behind them and actually implement where possible some of the things they recommend to solve. So actually, as we reach the 4 o'clock hour, we're not going over late at Friday at 4 o'clock. I want to thank you for all of this. You've made this point that I think has been one of many threads throughout this institution, is that we are evolving even more into equity-minded and equity-focused problem solvers. Our job is to solve problems that some barriers we created in our student experience. They bring a lot of others with them, and they bring a lot of assets. And it's our job to help remove the barriers, try to understand the different students that we have based on race and other factors, and design solutions that create equity and improvement, as you heard from Tia this morning, as you heard all the way back to yesterday. So thank you to all of you and the academic senates at your colleges for being with us today. Thank you for supporting this work. And with that, we are reaching the end of our time together over these 2 days. I have been honored to be here with you. I feel like DJ Steve should be here at this moment doing the outro, but thank you for your time. The surveys, again, would be really helpful if you could spend one last second in the 10 to 5 in the day 2 survey. You have team time now if you are using it on your own. And we certainly want your feedback for future Inland Empire events. I am fortunate to get to see all of you, hopefully sooner rather than later. Those of you on the California Guide Pathways Project at a webinar next Friday. Those of you in IAG27 working with you, of course, on the design teams the rest of the semester, and continuing into next year on both of those projects. So thanks to our amazing friends from GIA. Thanks to all of the conference organizers, Quinton and others. Thanks to our regional coordinators, Leslie and Angelica. Obviously, thanks to the College Futures Foundation for their funding of this work. This has been a lot of months to lead up to this with a great design team. And it's been an honor to sit here. And I hope that all of you take a lot with you back home. And as is often the case in professional development, it now relies on you to take this and turn it into strategy and action rather than have this be disconnected from your work. You want to have it help undergird and drive future innovation. I have a lot of faith and confidence in you. And again, I thank you all for your efforts serving students. I know the calendar turns to May tomorrow. I think everyone here is on semesters. So it is reaching that end of the hardest year you've probably ever had in higher ed. So be good to yourself, be kind to yourself. I know I don't need to remind you to be dedicated to your students because you already will, but thank you for that. And we will see you down the road in various settings. So thank you so much for your time today and have yourself a wonderful week. Thanks, everybody.